It's funny. Just the other day, I Want to Hold Your Hand came on, and it took me right back, to my dad's old vinyl collection.
Yeah.
Blasting the Beatles on those, like clunky speakers, pure joy, pure energy.
Yeah.
Yeah. But this article you shared, it like dives into how that sound, that whole feeling, was really just the start of this wild ride for them.
It's true, yeah.
It's like we're not just talking about the Beatles, right? It's more like we're using them to figure out how any group, even at the very top, can still get pulled in totally different directions.
Yeah, and I think it's easy to forget that bands, they are made up of individuals.
Oh, totally.
Each with their own creative impulses, and those impulses, they change over time.
Okay, so let's break this down a bit. The article starts off with, I Want to Hold Your Hand. Right. And it's like representing this innocent, unified image, musically, lyrically, the whole thing. It's catchy, straightforward, and it just blew up, resonated with so many people.
And it wasn't just the sound either, right? Think about it. Look, those matching suits on Ed Sullivan.
Oh, yeah.
A visual symbol of how tight they were musically.
Totally. But then things start changing, right?
Yeah.
Norwegian Wood, Day Tripper. The article highlights those as early signs of something different, like a shift in their musical DNA. What's happening there?
Well, I mean, lyrically, things get a little, more ambiguous. Musically, well, hello, sitar.
Right.
It's like this nod to their growing interest in Eastern sounds, that whole psychedelic experimentation vibe.
Which, I mean, it's the mid-'60s. It makes total sense.
Exactly.
The world's changing. And the Beatles, they weren't exactly immune to those cultural shifts.
No, absolutely. It's like they were absorbing all this energy, right? The hippie movement, experimenting with drugs, it got channeled into their music.
And that takes us to arguably their biggest turning point.
Yeah.
1967, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. Talk about pushing boundaries.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, that song alone, right? Caused a huge uproar. People saying it was about LSD.
Oh, yeah.
Even got banned by the BBC. Can you imagine?
I know.
A song that popular today? The fallout would be insane.
It'd be crazy. And it shows you, it really shows you how much bolder, how much more out there their artistic statements were becoming. And it wasn't just the lyrics, the music too.
Oh, yeah.
It just getting more intricate, more experimental, the sounds, the structures, everything.
Yeah, it's like they were saying, look, we're not just, some pop band anymore. We're artists, and we're here to shake things up.
And they did. They really did. But, as their music was changing, so was their creative process.
Right.
And the article, it kind of suggests that that's where some of the tension within the band starts.
It's true.
There's this example about Revolution 1 from the White Album. 40 hours.
It's a long time.
40 hours to record that track.
Yeah, and the article, it kind of blames those crazy recording sessions partly on the drug use, but also on each Beatle, bringing their own songs to the table.
That's true.
So it became less about writing together and more about hey, listen to what I can do, Showing off their own style. And it's interesting, that whole shift, right?
Yeah.
Towards each of them doing their own thing. It wasn't just the music, It was their look, too.
Right. We were saying, early on, it was all about those matching suits, that whole symbol of unity.
Exactly.
But then, even visually, they started to break free.
Yeah, absolutely. Think about Sgt. Pepper's, right?
Okay.
Those military outfits, bright colors.
Yeah.
It was still kind of a uniform, but man, a lot more individual.
Right.
And then, don't even get me started on Magical Mystery Tour. They were barely even...
Oh, yeah, the Walrus costumes. Talk about a statement.
Exactly.
So it's as their music got more experimental, so did how they looked. Bolder, way more individualistic. It's almost like they were giving everyone permission, to just embrace being themselves.
Yeah, no, totally. And visually, that whole individuality thing, it becomes even more obvious with the Let It Be album cover.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, it's so striking because it's them, but in separate squares.
Right.
Almost a premonition. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Of them all going their own ways. The cover's telling us, hey, we're not this single thing anymore. We're 4 different people headed in 4 different directions.
Yeah, and that's...
Go ahead.
No, you go.
Well, that's what leads us to the big question, right? What ended it?
Right, yeah.
Was it just creative differences?
Yeah.
Or was there something bigger going on?
Exactly.
And the article, it doesn't really give you one answer.
Okay.
But it does say their trip to India back in '68, that was a turning point.
Interesting.
They went to, study meditation.
Yeah, with Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, right.
Right. Looking for something shared, but...
Kind of backfire, huh?
In a way, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, it wasn't the only reason for the split. Sure.
But it does feel like the beginning of each of them looking for who they were outside the band.
Interesting. Yeah.
Like Ringo, he left early, said he didn't like the food, missed his family.
Right.
Makes you wonder, though,
What?
If there were already problems.
Oh, yeah.
And the trip just made them worse.
Totally.
Yeah, like maybe it was all just simmering under the surface.
Right.
And that trip just turned up the heat.
Yeah, for sure.
It's definitely possible. So John leaves right after Ringo.
Okay.
Then George takes off. Then Paul. I mean, think about it. They go to this thing to try to be closer.
Right.
And it ends up showing them how different they all are.
Wow. Yeah. And then, of course...
Well, and then... Go ahead.
No, go ahead. You were going to say...
I was going to say, then you've got Yoko Ono coming into the picture.
Right.
And she always gets painted as, like, the villain.
Yeah, Yoko broke up the Beatles.
Exactly.
But you got to see it in context, Those tensions. Oh, yeah, they were already there.
So it's less about one person and more about all of it,
Yeah, like creative differences. Everyone growing. The pressure.
Oh, yeah.
Can you imagine being that famous, constantly having to make music, tour?
It's intense.
Always in the spotlight.
No wonder they started cracking.
Right.
But here's the thing.
What's that?
Even with all that, they were still making incredible music.
That's true.
By Let It Be, they'd each put out solo albums.
Wow. Yeah, it's almost like they needed to do that.
Yeah.
To keep growing.
Like, it wasn't just ego.
Right.
It was 4 guys who'd been a band for over a decade. They had to try new things.
Yeah, totally.
It's like that John Lennon quote, I started the band, I disbanded it.
Yeah.
Owning it, But also, like, admitting that sometimes, moving forward.
Yeah.
Means letting go.
It's amazing, though, when you think about it, how much we've actually covered.
It really is.
And it's not, it's not just some band breaking up.
No, not at all.
It's about how art changes.
Yeah.
The pressure, of everyone watching you. And just that human thing, of needing to find your own way.
Totally. And I think that's why the Beatles story still matters. All these years later,
Yeah.
It's like this universal truth about creating something with other people, that back and forth between working together and making your own mark.
That makes me think, have you ever, been working on something?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not a band, but anything where it started to feel, I don't know, like those collaborations were holding you back.
Oh, for sure, all the time. I mean, it's a balancing act, right? No matter what you're creating. But it makes you think, with the Beatles, did they have to break up to really grow?
That's the question, right?
Totally.
Like, are there other ways for bands to last?
Right.
Where everybody can still do their own thing?
Without calling it quits.
Exactly. Without it being the end.
That is the million-dollar question.
It is.
And it makes you think about what they left behind. Not just their music, but their whole story, right?
It's true.
It's like a guide, for anyone making anything with someone else.
It really is. It makes you realize, even when it's hard, even when it hurts, change.
Oh, yeah.
Can lead to something amazing.
100%. It's like they say, sometimes you got to break things to make something new.
And who knows, right? Maybe somewhere out there right now, there's a band dealing with the exact same stuff.
Right.
Figuring out how to change, how to stay together.
Yeah.
Without,
Without saying goodbye.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now that would be something special, wouldn't it?
Oh, for sure. That's a whole other story.
That's a whole other deep dive.